there's a funny difference of opinion here between the MAGA this MAGA wing you're talking about and Iran. And here's what I mean. The MAGA wing thinks that the little Satan, Israel, is controlling the big Satan, us. The Iranians, of course, think the opposite. They think that the big Satan, us, are controlling the little Satan. So who's right? Well, Iran is right. Why? Take what we're talking about today, which is the ceasefire. Who's controlling whom? Right now, if Israel had its way, Israel would continue to be pummeling Iran. Israel has every national interest in ending that regime. That regime has been a plague and a monster really for 50 years. And Israel has the ability, they have a window of opportunity, they may not get it again. And so that's their interest. That's what Netanyahu wants to do. Who's stopping him? Trump. So who's calling the shots here? Netanyahu is reluctantly acceding to Trump and not the other way around.
All right, joining me now, best-selling author, filmmaker, and host of the Dinesh D'Souza podcast, 5 days a week. Link down in the description below. Dinesh D'Souza, welcome back to the Alec Show.
Alec, it's always a pleasure. Great to be with you.
Yeah, the news cycle has been shifting so quick. I wanted to get you yesterday when all things were different here. So we had, World War III imminent. Then we had a ceasefire. Now we have Trump dropping F-bombs. So what do you make here of this latest, the ceasefire deal? And then who broke this thing? Trump says both are to blame. How do you make out what's happening right now where we are?
I think, quite honestly, that the ceasefire issue is a bit of a sideshow. The big news here is the crippling of the Iranian nuclear facilities. That was a huge decision by Trump, the biggest foreign policy decision of his presidency, including the previous one, by the way, and took enormous courage and also flawless execution. So that, I think, is going to be one for the history books. Now, the ceasefire is, I think, Trump's way of saying, I'm not going here to remake the society. I'm not exporting democracy. I'm not doing any of that. This is a go in and go out. And that's the big lesson, by the way, of the U.S. operation in Afghanistan, going back to the aftermath of 9/11, probably also Iraq. Those operations would have turned out totally differently had we gone in and gone out. So I think Trump is making very clear that that is his way of doing things. And of course, the ceasefire would be like a nice way to tie the whole thing into a bow. But there are 10 ways to break a ceasefire, right? It goes into effect at midnight, but it's midnight Eastern time, not Central time. Wait, it's not midnight over here yet. Or they lobbed a missile 5 seconds before, so we're not going to just let that go. We got to send one 5 seconds after. So this sort of stuff is going to go on. And I don't even think it matters all that much. Now, Trump has, in fact, gotten basically on the line with Netanyahu, who's basically said, all right, we're done, we're out. So I think the ceasefire will, in fact, have some measure of legitimacy. But again, I'm not going to lose any sleep over the ceasefire. If those two countries want to continue to exchange some blows, no big deal. The mission, as I say, has been accomplished.
Well said. And I think here's the thing, Dinesh. You have so many people from both sides, from inside the MAGA party, and it's basically saying, and it's flashbacks from everybody. Everyone has the same gun shy from weapons of mass destruction. So people seeing this as a similar undertone. We were told weapons of mass destruction, there were none. And it led us into this long escalated war. Now we're telling people, hey, Iran has the nuclear weapon. But to think that Trump now all of a sudden changed his tune and wants to become a person that gets involved in a 20-year war, I think is ridiculous. He's never been that guy. It has been, as you said, he wants to get in, get out, accomplish the mission, and that's it. This isn't Trump looking for a boots on the ground occupation and overthrow the government, as you say.
Yeah, I think that one of the problems is that we draw lessons from history, and the lessons of history are ambiguous because the situation is different, right? So Iran is not Iraq. And I don't just mean that they're two different countries. I mean that Iraq is a country that even under Saddam was kind of a regional bully. Iran is a global ideological power, right? Iran has global aspirations. It's got this revolutionary ideology that is the heart of the regime. That's a key difference. The second key difference is that Trump is not George W. Bush. Big difference. And a third difference is that the WMDs in Iraq were, well, as it turns out, fictional. But Iran did, in fact, have nuclear facilities, and they were, in fact, moving with enrichment. And so that was not imaginary, that was real. And so, one of the problems with taking all your lessons from one place and not in another, because, hey, look, we say today things like, preemptive war is a bad idea. And in general, it probably is. But one of Winston Churchill's points in World War II is that there was not enough preemption, right? The Nazis are building a massive war machine. Britain and France are sitting on their hands doing nothing. Had they preemptively built up their own defenses, World War II might have been able to be averted. So you can get different lessons from different wars, and you've got to be very careful in how you interpret these lessons.
And it does seem like the peace through strength is what Trump preaches, and he has been preaching since predating him running for the first term. There's a strength piece of this. It doesn't mean that it may sound like if Trump is going to announce to the world, we're never going to take military action ever. So what signal does that send to anybody there? I think also, too, by him doing this and being able to fly these B-2 bombers right over their facilities and get out undetected sends a strong message to the rest of the world, too. Like, wow, they were able to pull this thing off. Nobody even knew about it. They didn't get one person harmed. That's the strength part of the peace through strength, correct?
Exactly. The reverberations of this are far and wide. I mean, think of something a few days from now, there will be a meeting in Rio de Janeiro between these BRICS nations, right? So Russia will be there, China, Iran, India, Brazil, and all these countries were kind of happily cooking up an alternative currency to the dollar. But now I think you're going to see some of these countries, Brazil, India, go, we don't really know if we want to be in this BRICS deal over here. We'd rather line up with the winners and be with the United States. And so I think that this has turned out to be truly America first in its widest application. See, there's the debate in the MAGA movement is not over America first, but whether America first should be interpreted narrowly by drawing a kind of cordon around our own border, or interpreted more widely to realize, hey, listen, we function in a world, we have allies, we have enemies, we have people sitting on the fence, and what we do is going to affect the world.
Right, and so the one faction of MAGA is of the whatever you want to call it, the break between the Republican influencers online is that we're not doing things to protect America first, we're doing things to protect Israel first, and that is the argument that is coming from one side. The other side, obviously, the Trump loyalists that are saying Trump is America first. He defines the party. So what is your reaction to these people on the left that are saying Trump is not acting in America's interest first, he's acting in Israel's interest first?
Well, there's a funny difference of opinion here between the MAGA, this MAGA wing you're talking about, and Iran. And here's what I mean. The MAGA wing thinks that the little Satan, Israel, is controlling the big Satan, us. The Iranians, of course, think the opposite. They think that the big Satan, us, are controlling the little Satan. So who's right? Well, Iran is right. Why? Take what we're talking about today, which is the ceasefire. Who's controlling whom? Right now, if Israel had its way, Israel would continue to be pummeling Iran. Israel has every national interest in ending that regime. That regime has been a plague and a monster really for 50 years. And Israel has the ability, they have a window of opportunity, they may not get it again. And so that's their interest. That's what Netanyahu wants to do. Who's stopping him? Trump. So who's calling the shots here? Netanyahu is reluctantly acceding to Trump and not the other way around. So I think that Israel has a lot of influence. I don't deny the influence of, say, AIPAC. I think that influence can be exaggerated. Remember in the Tucker Carlson, Ted Cruz interview, Ted Cruz actually, even though people thought, oh, Tucker really got him, Ted Cruz made a couple of really powerful points. And one of them was, if Israel really controls the U.S. Congress, how come they don't control the Democratic Party? How come the Democratic Party has allowed the Ilhans and Rashida Tlaib and all these jihadis to take center stage? Why didn't AIPAC just say, hey, listen, we own you guys. You know what? You're going to side with us regardless of what your voters think. No, AIPAC was not powerful enough to be able to do that. So these are some of the counterpoints that are worth keeping in mind.
And I think there's some truth to all of it, but there's the extreme. They take it to the extreme, especially the World War III people. But it's like you have also, too, you have the neocons, the warmongers that are in here. You have the media, which Trump just really lambasted this morning. I mean, you're calling them scum, the CNN. Just you have it almost reminds me of like, yesterday, Iran state media was telling their people it obliterated our base over there. And they showed footage, whether it was true or not, of Iranian people like waving flags and stuff. But it's very similar to our own media here, telling our own people the wrong thing to give them in misdirection. And it's happening time and time again. So you can't listen to what the mainstream media says. You have the Democrats that no matter what Trump does, they have to automatically denounce it. And then you have a fraction within his own party that is going after. So it's like, it seems like everything coming after Trump in this direction, but he's standing firm in who he is, what he believes in, and he's not backing down. And that's why he seems to be the greatest person for this moment in time right here.
The Democrats and the media are operating on the same sheet music, right? And it was really fun to watch them because they were really praying that the attack would be a failure. In fact, they were reporting, we don't really know if the Iranian facilities were, and then someone comes up and goes, well, yeah, they were. And then you can see the disappointment on the face of these guys, or even the ceasefire. Well, the ceasefire is really not going to happen. No, Iran never said they agreed to it. Actually, Iran said they agreed to it. And then again, you see this dejection as if to say that, they just, as if their day just got really worse. So that's all very predictable. I think Trump is playing those guys beautifully. Now, you are right that on the MAGA side, you do have a couple of extremes. And one of them is, I think, resolutely pushing for regime change in Iran. Now, I have to confess, I'm a little closer to that camp in the sense that I would like to see regime change in Iran, but I don't think we should be the instruments of doing it. So I agree with the goal, but I don't agree with the means. By contrast, you have the kind of World War III crowd, and if those guys had their way, we would not have launched this mission. In fact, they were, in a sense, trying to almost, you could say, browbeat Trump into not doing it by saying, we're the real MAGA. And Trump sort of had to put him in line by saying, actually, guess what? I came up with this whole idea, not you. And so I kind of get to say what it means. You don't have to be on the MAGA train, but I am MAGA and not Bannon or whoever it is. So I think Trump has, in a sense, maintained not just a resolute consistency, but Trump has done the right thing here. And I think we are seeing the fruits of it. And I think you're going to begin to see that the kind of reluctant MAGA guys all now kind of sidling onto Trump's wagon and basically rewriting history, pretending like they never really said what they did. So this is part of what we're going to see over the next, I think, few weeks.
It seems very reminiscent of when a lot of the Trump supporters broke off and started supporting Ron DeSantis and started to push that. And then all of a sudden, when he got knocked out, then they all started to kind of all come back into the fold and, forget, like, have amnesia that they didn't campaign for the other guy, but which is fine. I mean, listen, open debate is good, but it's when you have the drama queens that are starting, I wish I never voted for Trump. I take back my vote. It's like, what are you doing? Like, it's like, have the debate. And I think more of the MAGA move, like we saw with Trump, Tucker and Ted Cruz. I believe we need a lot more of that in the MAGA movement. I think we need more conversation, civil discourse, rather than debating the liberals who have lost touch with reality anyway. I think we need more of that debate within our own party.
The other thing is, I think, Trump is such a unique guy. I've said before, when God made Trump, he really threw away the mold. I mean, look at his post today where he's calling on the Israelis as they leave Iran to do what he calls, quote, a plane wave. Now, I mean, nobody else would say that, right? I mean, you can imagine a President Rubio or a President J.D. Vance. We're just not going to see this again, right? So, to my view, we have the greatest comedian of all the presidents. He's in the White House. We might as well enjoy it while it lasts because it isn't going to last forever.
Yeah, we're never going to get this guy again. The last thing, let me just switch to the topic here, Dinesh, because I know I got to get you out of here. The U.S. Supreme Court was a big ruling for Trump, allowing him now to deport these violent criminals to any country that'll accept them again, which is what we were doing, whether they go to Sudan or El Salvador, wherever it is. Now the Supreme Court gets it. But we have the Democrats playing this political theater like we saw with the Alex or Jose Padilla putting on the show, constantly grandstanding. And it just seems like the majority of the people in the country, when polled, are for what Trump is doing with these illegal immigrants getting deported. So you have the Supreme Court now siding with him, but you have the federal judges and the Democrats grandstanding against President Donald Trump. So what's your take on it?
I think that a lot of times when these decisions come down, we should look at the incentives. And here's what I mean. If I were a criminal illegal and I follow the news, what would I be thinking right now? Well, I'd be thinking, look, I really don't want to end up like, in Sudan or El Salvador, with Bukele breathing down my neck. I'm going to get out of here. It's a little bit like what happened when the federal government started going after Harvard, right? Harvard puts up a big, we're going to find a local judge in Boston. None of it matters. Why? Because if I were an international student at Harvard, I'm going to say, well, look, some local judge may uphold it, but it could be reversed by an appellate court to the Supreme Court. My position at Harvard is insecure. I think I'm going to transfer to MIT or Caltech. So those forces are already in motion. I think so. I think the greatest benefit of this Supreme Court decision is it's going to increase the pace of the self-deportation of illegal aliens, of criminal aliens.
Yeah, and that's great because, like you said, now you have the opportunity, and he's offering you a way to get money to do this, to pay for the flight. I mean, the incentive is there, and you look at the alternative, which is you could end up in the Sudan by mistake, or you could end up there indefinitely. I mean, that seems like a no-brainer. But that's the other part of this from the MAGA movement saying these deportations aren't happening fast enough. But you have to argue that it would be if you didn't have these federal activist judges in the way and you didn't have the mainstream media lighting fires underneath all the people. And you see them now protesting these anti-ICE raids. You have all these, and it seems very reminiscent of the BLM where they're organized, people coming from out of state, and they're all having these anti-ICE protests. And that's not helping the effort either. And the optics of it, despite the fact that Obama deported many more people than Trump without any due process at all.
Yeah, there's some people in the MAGA camp who say, well, I didn't vote for this stuff going on with Israel, or I didn't vote for that. I voted for deportations. But, all presidents have to deal with foreign and domestic policy. It's not the case that if you do one, you can't do the other. And the truth of it is that Obama was doing his aggressive best to get Iran across the nuclear threshold. That was the point of all those pallets of money. So, we voted for Trump to be the anti-Obama, to undo Obama's remaking, not just of America, but also of the world. I mean, the Arab Spring, the subsidies to Iran, that was part of a very conscious Obama policy. And I think Trump very consciously has set out to undo it.
Yeah, wow, great point, Dinesh. All right, let me get you out of here. What do you got coming up on the Dinesh D'Souza or Dinesh D'Souza? Now I got all tongue tied here. Dinesh D'Souza show this week.
Well, I'm just going to talk. Well, today I'm going to talk really about revolution, right? Because the Iranian people here are feeling a little bit left in the lurch because you come so close to overthrowing the government, and then if there's a pullback, there's a ceasefire, what's going to happen? Well, the regime is going to strengthen itself again over time, and the opportunity will be lost. But see, here's the problem. I remember I came to this country in 1978 while the Iranian Revolution was brewing. Wide swaths of Iranian society united in pushing out the Shah, welcoming the revolution. And one of the age-old articles of conservative wisdom going back to Edmund Burke, be very careful what you wish for, right? Revolution is a dangerous business. You want to get rid of the bad guy, you may very well end up with the worst guy. And see how hard it is now, even 50 years later, to untie the knot that you made.
Yeah. Awesome. So I got the link to your podcast down there in the description below. I love that you have your wife come on the show all the time. And listen, you got a beautiful family. You're one of my favorites from way back before I started doing this politics thing anyway. But I've had your son-in-law on the show now several times as a congressman. I think he's one of the best young congressmen we have in there right now. I love just watching the clips of him engaging with them online. I mean, he's very sharp, Brandon Gill. And I think he's one of the best we have in there. Give me a quick take on him, if you could, before we get out of here.
Well, I mean, as a family, we're very proud of him, and he's the youngest GOP congressman in the country, and he has developed his own kind of unique simple cross-examining style. So many of these GOP guys, you have 5 minutes to ask questions. They go on a major filibuster about, I will not rest until this happens and that happens. And Brandon Gill just, basically goes, do you believe that white supremacy is the greatest plague that faces our nation? Do you want to take every white person and throw them out of a window like you tweeted 2 years ago? It just puts these people up against the wall and they don't know how to respond.
Yeah, a lot of fun to watch. Dinesh D'Souza, I got the link to your podcast down in the description below. Always grateful for your time. Thanks for joining me today on the Alec Lace Show.
My pleasure.
You're listening to the Alec Lace Show. The future is family.